Black suit like the minister, Marvin with the carbon, yeah, sucker turn the finisher. AR handler, AK manager, make them shoot it all in. Who the fuck gon' handle her? Principal and pistols on them pussies in Atlanta. New girl, I shut it up, pray the bullet damage her. Bad black tax, still in the casket.
Going to the phones, you're on the lab. Who's this? We can't hear you, Eddie. It sounds like you're going to a black hole right now. Eddie's a little set. We do have one of those up here. Dr. Knows. Let's get to that record then. Let's get to that record by request of Eddie. Let's get into this popcorn joint featuring Freddie Gibbs. Born by.
On my gun, them I don't feel it. I still one like we doesn't feel it. Show that in us, I know what no kill me, no clear me, no pray that. No kill me, no clear me, no play that. Try by anywhere in the never smoking a spray and the way never spray that. Anywhere where the extra and the cake at you will have run like train at the train track. And you boys time for the me train that. You know kill gun like kill shot. Everyone may feel like he's kill shot. One over your one, they are there now. But this joke will be done. They want to fire and the plane now. Because the boom, boom, bounce, me and all the house, but in every couch, people got more house, get you like a mouse, hit them ever spitting, good like a bounce, and they get my cash up, man, it's up to reach you, take you on the surface, because Dr. Delimitch, Mama said a minute, no baby, got no principle, no business on my city, don't tell them just what they can say to me, people that wanna see me, they can roll up, no matter who I hit me, I smoke up, they move with your life, boy, you're lost, fuck, you rip gangsta, don't cross, like, from me a young girl, I said, ain't never fear of that. Go and jump, I never want to be a ring that. I don't know when your heart is big shot. can't win no war with ya. Oh, yeah. And you love me, so I'm gonna lay down flat. I'm go to my direct, I'm gonna lay down flat. You know, I know the hard, I'm gonna lay down flat. The money full of a few go chat. I'm
In het Nederlands. Tot slot, een slot van mij. Wil graag kennis maken met het vak D-traden om te kijken of het iets voor jou is. Wat je kan doen is je kan een gratis strategiegesprek inplannen met mij of iemand uit mijn team. Dus als je naar de link gaat onder deze video in de beschrijving, kun je op klikken. Op het moment dat je naartoe gaat, dan kan je een call inplannen of een gesprek inplannen. En dan kan je met mij of met iemand uit mijn team sparren om te kijken of deze video bij jou past. Je kan alle vragen stellen die je hebt en gaan wij kijken of we jou kunnen helpen met het daytraden. Dus doe dat sowieso als je interesse hebt in het daytraden. Tot slot, dit was hem. Ik hoop dat je wat aan hebt gehad en ik spreek je in de volgende.
Wish list delayed. Russia has been receiving no weapons from China, and the fear of secondary sanctions being imposed on China's economy might be a big reason why. But there is another reason why, and it might be more important. Currently, Russia looks like a loser, with no major military victories to its name in a long time, and the country under an iron boot of sanctions. The odds of a Russian victory don't look strong enough for Xi Jinping to want to risk China's place in the global economy in order to boost his military ambitions. It's also not clear if a Russian victory would actually make it easier for China to invade Taiwan, as the U.S. may be more motivated to protect the country before anything can happen, rather than try to provide aid after the fact. And it's unlikely that any other potential allies would be able to help either. Putin's been struggling to get traction in military affairs, but it has some success in another area, a charm offensive. Putin's been testing himself as the champion of the oppressed global South, which has largely been mocked by those in the West as cheap propaganda. But as long as the U.S. remains the world's dominant superpower, there will be those who see anything opposing its power as automatically the underdog. Putin's gotten words of support from the new leader of Brazil, President Lula, who's blamed Ukraine and NATO for helping to provoke the conflict. While South Africa hasn't actively defended Putin, the current leadership has said they won't help to enforce rulings from the International Criminal Court against him, which will at least give Putin a few more possible vacation spots, which leaves Putin a man in search of an endgame. Putin's best shot for a victory in Ukraine came at the very beginning of the war, when he tried to overrun Kyiv, and that very public failure made it seem like opposing the war in Ukraine was a risk worth taking. Since then, it's all been downhill, and he's facing headwinds as he fights for every last scrap of territory. He simply doesn't have the resources to oppose a NATO-backed Ukraine, and he also doesn't have the manpower to hold out against an increasingly motivated Ukrainian military. As long as Ukraine has willing suppliers, Putin's choices are to retreat or lose slowly. That is, as long as they have suppliers. Putin's main hope for victory right now lies in political chance, as a wave of authoritarian right-wing leaders and popular far-left leaders all jockey for power in countries currently led by center-left and center-right leaders. There have already been a few changes in leadership that have worked in Putin's favor, such as in Israel. While Israel is always very cautious in aiding Ukraine due to Russia's presence in Syria on its border, the previous government was seen as a more pro-Ukraine compared to the current right-wing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And we need a land to a dramatic shift. The UK completely locked down as pro-Ukraine, now that controversial leader Jeremy Corbyn has been ousted. The same can't be said for France.
All our operators are on call right now. Please try later.
Disengaging from NATO and Ukraine, as the European Union's only nuclear power, France leading the pro-Ukraine bloc would be a major blow. Of course, one player would have more influence than any other. Ukraine is a more loyal ally than the United States, with President Joe Biden providing a near endless supply of aid, supplies, and weapons, including high-level tanks and state-of-the-art missile defense systems. As the leader of the Democratic Party, Biden has kept it firmly in line with the vast majority of the party backing aid, as well as sanctions on Russia. But the same can't be said for the Republicans. While many party members view opposing Russia as a national security issue, Putin also has support like Renegade Congresswoman Margaret Taylor, who frequently uses Twitter to promote the Congress party's One potential supporter is the United States so for years, when Donald Trump was in office, he would just shoot investments. And even today, the always controversial Trump has mostly good things to say. He's also complained about the U.S. getting involved in foreign wars and not to cut back on his
Don't even go there.
Listen, this is Tony Prince. I'll cut straight to the chase. I heard you were a savvy investor, shall we say? Yes, I like that, a savvy investor. I'm not such a savvy investor. I was gonna open up a chain of venues, only that's all gone to shit. Again, but head over to foreclosures.mazebank.com and buy one out of foreclosure. I can open you the best nightclub in the whole state, any of them, seriously. And so you don't think I don't understand, where there's nightclubs, there's cash. And when there's cash, there's money that can be washed. Anyway, think about it. For the love of all that is fine in this world.
Moderate estimates for casualties place the war in a total of 70,000 killed and 310,000 wounded. Of those, Russia is believed to have suffered 50,000 dead and 180,000 wounded, giving it the lion's share of the death count. Given Russia's extreme artillery advantage, though, Ukrainian wounded are only about 50,000 behind the Russian wounded, despite having less than half the dead. This is because artillery is extremely good at wounding, but not so good at killing entrenched troops. Russia has already suffered nearly as many confirmed KIA as the U.S. did during the entire duration of the Vietnam War, 20 years of direct involvement. In terms of gains, Russia has at best temporarily secured large parts of the separatist East, but has failed to fully consolidate the breakaway republics, which are now, at least according to Russian law, officially part of Russia. The international community, however, does not recognize the illegal annexation of Ukraine's east. In exchange for tenuous control over the Ukrainian breakaway regions, Russia has lost immeasurably more. Over 1,000 Western companies have either fully or at least partially pulled out of Russia, taking a significant amount of investment capital with them, dealing significant damage to the Russian economy. Prices on many goods have doubled or more, though the Russian economy remains relatively stable thanks to a significant war chest boom built up over the years for exactly this scenario. The bad news is about half of that $600 billion reserve was frozen at the onset of the war, and the remaining has been steadily draining away as Russia attempts to keep the Russian economy afloat. Exact economic data can be difficult to find, as Russia no longer allows for independent verification of its market figures. Instead, Russian officials have been feeding organizations like the IMF their own data, which, much to their discredit, the IMF has happily published without an ounce of skepticism. However, independent analysis of the Russian economy by multiple American and British groups have found an economy in serious trouble, only kept afloat by significant government spending, but instead has hit a record of $1.8 trillion at the start of this year, with revenues falling by about a third and spending growing by 58%. Market GDP dropped by between 2.2% or up to 3.9%, depending on who you ask, and none who you could ask have been granted access to internal Russian financial data. The true GDP loss could be significantly higher than that, and only expected to continue. Revenues from the export of energy have fallen significantly thanks to a painful European embargo and the imposing of price caps on Russian oil by the EU. This means that nobody using European ships, infrastructure, or any ships or infrastructure insured by a European agency is allowed to purchase oil at a higher price, like $100 a barrel for products that trade at a premium to crude, and $45 for products traded at a discount, such as fuel oil and naphtha. The price cap was not meant to destroy the Russian energy sector, though, and criticism about its ineffectiveness is completely missing the point. Europe wants Russia to continue selling oil, it just doesn't want it making a profit on it. Given the increased distances to ship certain products out of the EU into foreign markets, as well as the inefficiency of Russian equipment, cost of setting up new trade routes, and infrastructure, Russia is estimated to be at a break-even point on oil revenue. This means it's earning just about as much as it spends on extracting, refining, and shipping, which prompted Russia to begin to tax its oil companies at the price of Brent crude, rather than what its own oil is actually earning. This is obviously unsustainable and will cripple the Russian oil sector for decades as it sucks out funds for expansion, exploration, and basic maintenance, while nations like India and China are greatly benefiting from the deeply discounted oil and thus earning some amount of international ire. A complete boycott would be the exact opposite of what the region wants. If Russian oil disappeared overnight, it would drive the cost of other oil supplies through the roof. Hence why the EU wants Russia to continue selling its energy supplies. Things are still getting worse for Russia. The Ukrainian counteroffensive has already begun as of the writing of this script, with shaping operations utilizing HIMARS and Storm Shadow missiles deep behind enemy lines. Ukraine's preparing the battlefield for the coming offensive. Part of that preparation includes helping the Freedom of Russia Russian Volunteer Corps launch attacks inside of Russia. Multiple times now, both groups are across the border from Ukraine and Russia. A subsequent drone swarm attack against Moscow at the end of May that even more fuel to the fire, which is driving Putin's left being confident that he is capable of defending his own capital from a drone attack. While the drones aren't armed with high explosives, at least 3 buildings were struck in the wealthy Moscow suburbs, injuring 2 and causing minor damage. The real point of the attack was to erode Russian support for Putin. In such public anger against the wealthy elite, Putin stopped Russian society for decades. Attacks were announced that Russians around the country celebrated the fact they struck inside the same communities where government and business live. Putin is a president of the great without path. So, how do you get it? It all began with a botched intelligence assessment of the situation inside Ukraine before the invasion was launched. Putin entrusted his plans to one of the few advisors, fearing weak centered Western rush to supply Ukraine with arms to discourage an invasion, and planned to attack Ukraine secretly. It would have been a very small, tight circle. However, this meant that nobody in the